Sure. So it's 7:34 p.m. on Tuesday, March 16th, 2021. And this is Jason Collier, Energy Committee Chair, calling the meeting to order. All right. From a agenda perspective, I think the main points that we wanted to be able to cover tonight was the RFP and the ability to distribute and vote on that RFP so that we're comfortable with it, so that we can pass it out and get our quotes back. So
when did you want the quotes back?
So it looks like, I was looking at the RFP a little earlier, it looks like we have tentatively in there a date of March 31st. My question would probably be for Margaret around about how long do we typically give folks to decide if they want to participate in the RFP and provide bids back to us? 'Cause 2 weeks seems a little quick.
Yeah, 2 weeks does seem a little quick, and we can certainly extend it another week. I was just, this was all in hopes of doing a quick turnaround, which we could do by extending it another week. So with the attachments, the attached reference documents, they're going to have a lot to look over. So if you'd like to extend it to whatever the next April 7th, that would be fine too.
Okay, I would suggest that we probably extend it to April 7th. Because what I don't,
till April 9th if you want, give it till that Friday.
Okay, I don't want them to rush too much or feel like they have to rush. So I want us to be able to make sure that we can get good, thorough proposals. In my experience, sometimes when you give them too short of a deadline, you get a response with the requisite level of lack of detail because of not enough time. So
do you want to go to the 9th then, April 9th?
Yes, April 9th.
Okay.
What time?
It doesn't. The quotes don't require a time. They could submit it by midnight that night if they wanted to.
Well, I want to make sure my minutes reflect accurately. Okay, April 9 it is.
Yep. All right, hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to review. Other than updating the date to April 9th, everything looks in good order to me. So I'm assuming at this point, this is where I need to call for a vote and all in favor of sending the RFP in its
First, you have
state.
to ask if there are any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the audience or attendees this evening?
For me.
I would suggest, well, I'm sorry, through the chair.
And then ultimately you have to do a roll call vote.
Okay.
All right.
With an April 9th deadline, I would suggest that the deadline for questions be extended until Thursday, April 1st.
Okay.
Okay.
I missed that. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So with a due date of April 9th and a question back to us due date of Thursday, April 1st, I'd like to put to the Energy Committee Board for a roll call vote of approval of that particular document so that we can then send this out. Steve Broder?
I approve.
Eloise?
Eloise, do you approve?
I said yes.
Okay, sorry, I think I cut over you. And I, Jason Collier, also approve. So we have a unanimous decision from the board.
I'll get this issued and out to the 4 vendors tomorrow.
Excellent, thank you very much.
And by the way, I've worked with Beth Greenblatt in 3 different municipalities, when I've been in three different municipalities, and she's terrific. But I will get it out equally to everyone. Beth Greenblatt is Beacon Integrated Solutions.
Okay. All right. So then from additional business that we had kind of on the agenda or and on the rolling agenda. So we've had some work that we were looking to do within BMS on the LED lighting. Looks like we just lost Eloise.
There she is.
All right, there she's back. So we had that. Admittedly, I haven't had a lot of time to review this information. And I know our core goal here was to get out this RFP. So we wanted to make sure that we could at least convene to vote on that this evening to get that RFP out. The other thing I think that was probably most important is adding the warrant article in to do the transfer of the funds to the Energy Committee fund from the net metering, from the purchase agreement, and get that approved also to be done in an automatic fashion month over month from here on out. And I believe, Margaret, you had drafted that and sent it out to us as well.
I did, and I didn't bring it with me. So
Okay.
I did draft it and send it out, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be the intent. And it's from the Municipal Energy Aggregation, the adder.
Yep.
And just so you know, the amount that could be transferred, the amount that you might want to request to be transferred at this town meeting from the prior year, FY20, would be $10,407.02. And that would be from free cash because the monies, the adders have been general fund revenue up until now. So we could ask town meeting to allow all adders from FY21 and future adders to automatically go into the Energy Committee's Special Stabilization Fund. That was the intent originally, right, Eloise?
Yes,
mute.
I believe it was.
Okay.
Based on our earlier discussions as well in the earlier meetings. That was absolutely one of the things that we talked about so that we could do it. And I think it's probably fairly important that we get that in place, especially as we think of, we've talked about some of the training that we need to be able to do, or maybe be able to bring somebody in to train everybody on the mechanical systems and the HVAC and the temperature control systems. So that's money that, we could then, put up to a vote to appropriate to actually get that right training in, right? So that we can do that, because I think that's also part of our green communities effort. We need to ensure not only that we have these types of technologies and tools in place, but that the people are properly trained in order to utilize them.
Yeah.
So
green communities will pay, their competitive grants will pay for the building operator certification trainings. But there's also the other reason for doing this, or more justification for doing this, would be that, for example, with the HVAC, with the rooftop unit for the town offices, Green Communities is not going to fund the whole thing. This money could serve as a match for projects like that. So it could come in handy. Okay, so we'll do, I'll work on the article. I'll plug in the money that was collected in FY20. So that could be moved over. And then we could ask town meeting to automatically move over monies from FY21 and on. Okay.
Okay, so those were probably the two priority pieces of business that we wanted to be able to cover. Steve, is there secondary items that we wanted to be able to cover this evening, or bring back up from for the now quorum as we Peg, thank you for helping get that approved, Margaret. Or so we can make some decisions and make some progress here with just 3 people.
The competitive grant. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt.
Jason and Margaret, there was one going through my notes, so you probably hear like rattle, rattle, rattle. It was from Eloise March 10th. Oh, not all that long ago, about something about the roof, the BMS roof. Do we have to do anything with that one? I don't know if maybe Eloise could elaborate on that email.
Oh, Eloise, was that actually giving the date that our roof, the rubber membrane roof was done on the town offices? Eloise, you'll have to unmute.
Eloise, you're on mute.
Some
There we go.
me for it, and I went back and found it, and it was in the town report for the end of that year from the school.
And what year was it again?
I think it was, what, 93?
Yes. May 3rd, 1993, voted unanimously to borrow the sum of 50,000 for replacing the Berlin Memorial roof. Some to
Okay,
be
there you go.
expended by Berlin School Committee.
So that's when our roof was replaced.
Mhm.
Good.
Wow.
I'll plug that into the Capital article.
Okay.
So that's 27 years ago, right?
Yes.
It's probably about time.
Yeah.
It's at least 7 years overdue.
Yeah, especially with how much the roofing technology has changed.
Mm.
But
There was also, last time we talked to Kelly Brown, she said there was a little bit of money.
Mhm.
We're gonna insulate the roof.
I'm going to talk with Kelly and, oh gosh, what's his name? B2Q. I can't remember his name, but I'm going to be talking with them tomorrow about the roof insulation, about using the competitive grant to do the roof insulation and partially funding the rooftop unit. So we'll see if we can squeeze, Joe Bliss from B2Q is who I'm going to talk with. And they had done the free building audit for us a year ago or so.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, and so I'll be talking with them to see if we can squeeze those projects in this competitive grant round. And then you've seen, Jason, you mentioned the emails from the school about the lighting retrofit.
Yeah.
I had hoped to reach out to Steve Pusateri to ask him to attend your meeting to discuss their needs and, kind of explain what they want to do, but I wasn't able to do it in time for
Okay.
tonight. So I didn't know if you wanted to get him in as soon as possible to talk with him or just go with what he's saying in the email. But the competitive grant round, the applications are due on April 9th. So we're really up against it.
Yeah. So I guess my question on that, that I know that they made changes to the whole competitive grant program, right? And we have the ability to ask for funds in the competitive grant either in, is it April or November?
Or
Right?
October.
We can only October, right? So we have the option to ask in April or we have the option to ask in October. And we need to make sure that when we do it, that's what we get for that year.
Yep.
And we can request money for a number of projects at the same time, right?
Yes.
Where we're not going to have back the information from our RFP in time to put that solar as part of the competitive grant. My question for the rest of the team is, does it make more sense for us to start planning for the October competitive grant instead of trying to rush and jam one or two things, small things into April, when we might be able to get it all in for October?
I'm inclined to
go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say,
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm inclined to go with your thinking on that one, Jay. I think we'd be rushing, and whatever we decide to do, if we miss an opportunity somewhere, I mean, yeah, we might be able to correct something later on, but I think it's better that we wait till October when we have all the information back.
So part of my thinking on that too is that we know that first and foremost, if there's any goal that we have here as an energy committee, is that town barn, right? And the situation that we have there with the electrical. And I feel like if we try to rush into this grant cycle for April 9th, we know that we're not going to have the town barn as part of that, unless there's a way for us to put in some placeholder to say we need X amount of funds to redirect towards this project, but I wouldn't even feel comfortable probably making an estimate. You know, we may have an idea briefly if somebody, one of the folks that is getting the RFQ can actually provide us, you know, faster kind of return. But I still feel like it would be a bit of a rush, and I would hate for us to have to wait until April of next year just to put it through for potential funding at some point. And what I don't know, and this is probably a question for Kelly, is if we do the October cycle, does that put us on October for each cycle thereafter, or is that just a fiscal year thing? So, you know, once 2021 is up, we can ask in October, and then we can ask again in April if we need. Or is it October of each year?
Do we know for sure? So we only have one opportunity. It's either April or October, correct? Okay.
Mhm. I believe that's
Okay.
how Kelly explained it to us, if I remember correctly.
But
Okay,
you
I'll ask
can't,
her.
you can't request another thing until you've completed
We
and
did.
did the initial thing. So my,
Okay.
a lot of what I have found is in these RFQ drafts. A lot of what you'll get back is boilerplate. Correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret. And this is their job. And they want money. So we can put in there if there are any questions. I mean, if they all come back and say that's too short, then we can't do that. But if we can, I mean, Margaret, you said you knew Beth.
Well, yeah, but we have to go with low quote. So if Beth gives low quote, fine, that's great. But if not, we'll go with whoever provides low quote for this.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you could call her and find out, is that a reasonable date? What might be off-putting to us might be a piece of cake to them. It's only one building.
So with the deadline for quotes on Friday, April 9th, and the applications due on April 9th, that's not going to be possible for that particular, for the solar piece anyway.
Right. So let me ask another question. I'm not sure if this helps or hurts, right? So the money that we're using to do the RFQ and pay the consultant to do that work is part of a competitive grant, right? That we received the last time, or no, it's not a
That's
competitive, it's a
technical
that's
assistance
meta,
grant.
it's
Mhm.
different. So do we have to have exhausted that grant in order to get into this competitive grant cycle?
No, we don't
No.
have to.
No,
Okay.
they're slightly different.
Okay.
So wouldn't we, if we were, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, the overarching conversation we're having here is, can we pull together fast enough the actual quote for what solar for the barn would actually be, like the actual job? And I feel like that's,
I don't think so, because at the end of the day, you're just getting permission. Correct me if I'm wrong either, Peg. You still have to go out to bid.
If it's what, under $10,000, Margaret, you need 3?
No, if it's over $10,000,
Over
you need
10.
3 quotes. So that's what we're
Yep.
doing on the meta grant for the solar on the roof. For solar on the roof, it's going to be a much more complicated procurement.
Yep.
right. That, and my understanding is, you know, we're having the evaluation of the building done because that's going to help us actually pull together the RFQ for the work.
They'll actually put together the RFP for us.
Okay.
We'll ask them to.
Yeah.
Right. So if they're doing that work, then it just makes sense that we should wait till October before we request these funds from the town.
How much do you think, I mean, say we could have done, you know, the HVAC and roof insulation and the school's LED lighting. I mean, how much how much money do you think we're sacrificing there? I don't know how much funding would have been involved with that. But then again, that said, those things, well,
Like to
construction,
go
that's
for
gonna be,
those this year
Yeah.
and do the solar on the highway roof, or technically next year,
Mhm.
October.
So what we're kind of deciding on here, right? Just I think to Steve's point is it worth it for us to do the HVAC on the roof? Because that would be partially covered, right? Is what Kelly said with
Yeah,
the
I think
funds,
a
right?
small
Not,
amount could be covered.
yeah.
I just don't know if that's, I don't know
The
if that's
LED
workable.
lighting would probably be fully covered by the grant. So we might get a little bit of kind of the roofing insulation, I think is what we might get, but not necessarily the HVAC.
Yeah, you
HVAC
don't
system.
change the roof for the insulation, but if you're gonna do the roof, then she said get the insulation.
Right. So it covers that. So I think what we're really talking about is probably some LED lighting is the core of it. And then, so what we have to determine is, does it make sense for us to sacrifice, what is it, 6 months probably, between October and April of 2022 for progress on the barn, basically, right? So it's a 6-month question, right? So if we do what we're doing now, then we don't get the October cycle, which means it's an extra 6 months till we can request grant money, which we're absolutely going to need and will be considerable for a solar project, versus asking for that potentially in October grant cycle, so that we can probably be, ready to go much sooner with that type of installation. What I don't know, and Steve, I'm curious your thought process on this, is the installation of whatever type of system that they put out there. Is it even feasible that they would be able to do any of that type of work through a New England winter, or would they have to wait anyways?
I mean, if it ends up going ground mount, then you probably have some weather issues. I would say a clear fall installation is probably feasible, but I don't know how soon after the October cycle we actually have funds, and then we need to then you'd go through the whole contractor game.
Mhm.
I mean, because we could have all that stuff like lined up, but we might have a contractor who's a little wary to like maybe sign on until we actually have all the funds, and then we have to get into their schedule. So I don't know. I mean, something big like this, it's not entirely sure. I
And
think, I guess it's, I mean, we're just, either way, I mean, we go in October, we get the funds, installation, if we don't have a crazy early winter happens at the end of the year, maybe even beginning of 22, or we wait till April and an installation happens springtime, summertime of 22, when, I mean, we're really going to be at, the peak for what our goal is for solar, right? I guess it's just a matter of, do we want to try to achieve a couple of small things first and then hold on till April 22? Like you're saying, is that 6 months going to buy us anything? I mean, we have much needed maintenance when it comes to the air handler, you know, but at the same time, we also have exorbitant power bills at the barn.
Yeah, but the time to do the heat exchange on the town offices is when they're doing the roof. Or that's how I took it. I mean, you're already gonna have them out here. They already have to do whatever they do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just your mounting. It's yeah. I'm trying to think back of the last time we installed a rooftop air handler. Your contractors will, whether you have a new roof or an old roof on there anyway, when it comes to their their mounting points and everything. They'll make sure that it's all weatherized. But it's like I mean, here's the other thing. It's like if it's a new air handler, like what's the lead time on that too? You know,
I have no idea.
it could be significant depending on what it is and who you're going with.
Has Dave Smith discussed that?
Not
The
that I
air
know.
handler.
Yeah, what kind of lead time he might need?
It probably says in the quote, which I don't have in front of me. That would be
Okay.
in the capital planning committee's folder, which I could look at later. Oh, no, I shouldn't say that. Did that come in as a capital? Yes, it did. That came in as a capital request. So I'd have to look at the quote.
Okay. But I suppose too, if I think about some of the pieces, right? So there's a little bit of grant money we could get to offset some small portion of whatever we're doing on the roof with the HVAC and the air handler, right? And then the other one that is out there is the LED lighting. If we go in October, we can put, obviously we're not going to be able to put the roof and the air handling, that's going to be done beforehand, right? Because it's a capital request. So what we're looking at here is, can we get a little bit of funds to defray part of the cost? And then I think of the LEDs, if we request that as part of the grant along with the solar in October, that LED project is certainly a project that can be done through the winter, right? Obviously it's
Well, they usually do it when the school isn't in session.
right? It usually is closed, so they prefer to do it over the summer.
Or
So they would
vacation week.
school break, school
Yeah.
vacation week, right? So that could tee it up for a December school vacation week kind of
But
retrofit.
correct me if I'm wrong. In the past, the school lighting was different. It was another energy bucket. They put that, you pay that, your portion of it comes in monthly. That comes through National Grid, I believe.
I don't know. I was under the impression we're not paying for any of those utility bills now at the school.
Well, that's true, except we get an assessment, which is cost of running the schools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
It's
increase-
6 of one, half dozen of another.
So is there a complication there now with the regional school district and us trying to do this work with the lighting?
No, we could actually do the work. It's a town-owned building, so we can actually do the work on that.
Okay.
If you
So-
are going to wait till October, you might want to ask someone from the school to come in and talk about their proposed project. This would give you time to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but didn't they put this on as part of their budgeting for this year?
No, this was
Oh, they took
outside
it
of
off?
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is outside of it, yeah.
So I guess my question is if we bypass this coming April, then that takes our ability to help out with the rooftop unit completely off the table, right?
yeah, because
Because it's on the Capitol. It was approved by the Capitol planning, of which I am a member.
Funding is, it doesn't take the air handler off the table. It doesn't take the roof off the table. It's just that funding would not come from green communities.
But
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm thinking is like if we bypass this,
Yep.
then we bypass an opportunity for us to help with, town funding. I mean, really, we're just trying to save the town money, right? It's happening no matter what.
Yeah, it's happening, right? So, and I guess that's the other question. I got the sense from Kelly when we were speaking with her at one of the last meetings that it's a little bit of getting creative, and there might not actually be a whole lot that it would help with.
Okay.
Right, I feel like that was part of the
That was the
conversation.
insulation part. But the fact is, it's still leaking, and it's leaking in Margaret's office. And it has been leaking more severely for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. They don't repair themselves. I would
Did-
go forward with the air handler now and then do the highway bond for October.
So let me ask this. So what do we need to pull together? Because we have what, 3 weeks or so to
Yeah.
pull together our application for this. So what is it that we need to pull together, and do we have enough time as
Yeah.
a committee to do that?
So, and if I can just hold on that for a minute, Steve, Eloise, one thing I think that we have to be careful of is we don't get to do the barn in October if we do the rooftop unit in April, right? From a defray the cost of funding, because we can only submit to one grant cycle. We can submit to April, or we can submit to October. We can't submit April and October.
Okay, then we pay for the air handler and the roof out of town money. And then we work like hell to get the highway bond for September, October, because maybe we can get it done at the start of the heating season, because I agree with Steve, the bills are horrendous.
Mhm.
And we might
Yeah.
be able to get an idea if, I don't know, like it's dangerous, right? So I don't think that the process works this way, right? Because it's public, not private. But starting a project like that, the likelihood of a grant covering the entire cost of that type of solar installation is also probably low, right? So we're going to have to kick in considerable money. And I think that's where you were going, Steve, which is we need to kick in a certain amount, but then a grant can kick in the rest. But if we're not going to know the results of that grant, we can't start the project because we can't get the right level of funding approved, because we're not going to approve it halfway and then hope for a grant
Right.
That is
to cover the
correct.
rest.
And then you still have to go through the capital planning, the finance committee. I mean, you still have a long road ahead of you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I talked to the select board on Monday night about the solar project. And I don't want to get anyone's hopes up because we're all stretched to the limits. But there is a new capital grant program coming out of the state called Rural and Small Town. It's called the Rural and Small Town Development Fund, and it's for capital projects specifically for towns under 7,000 people. This grant program would fund up to $400,000. Now, I don't know enough of the details to know whether it could be used in conjunction with a Green Communities Competitive Grant. But I mean, if we had $500,000 toward this solar project, that would go a long way to getting it done, right?
Yeah.
I can certainly try to reach out to the state and get a little more information on that program. But it does take into account things like, I don't want to say climate change. I'm looking at it right now. Promoting clean energy, using natural resources wisely, making efficient decisions. So it may be that we could justify that type of project in there. That grant deadline is, hold on for 1 minute. It's in June. So it would still give these consultants, the meta consultant,
We have plenty of time.
a couple of months. Full applications are due by the end of June under this program. So it's something that we could continue to look at while the consultant is doing this work. So it's a possibility.
Yeah, I think we should definitely explore all the avenues there. And the what I'm thinking is, depending on the cost of the barn program, there could be an opportunity where we might not have to use the application for the competitive grant for the barn, and we could try to use it for some other, like what is it, the car charging port,
Mhm.
Something along that line, that we could use that there. Uh, again, we have to figure out what's there, but I mean, maybe we can make some good decisions and get a bunch of small stuff done, or something that might, like some nice to haves instead of the needs. The barn is a
Yeah,
need.
yeah. And that's a big grant, that other grant that you're talking about,
Yeah.
Margaret. That's
Mm.
that's a difference maker, right? So that's, I mean,
Mm.
that's clearly a big one that could make material really
Yeah,
cut
I can
into it.
reach. I know a lot of these, a lot of the new grant programs are tied to growth, development, things like that. But if we can find that connection there,
Yep.
then we could better defend the project. But I might be able to reach out to Department of Housing and Community Development, who's overseeing this grant program. So,
Okay.
all right.
Do you have any documentation that you could share with us?
I have the download here. I'll send you the link.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'll send you the link to it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So
How do we
Steve, am I
like? Go ahead.
am I off with thinking when we were talking with Kelly that she said that the rooftop unit wouldn't really be covered? Like we tried to go down that path before. I feel like she mentioned that really the only thing that might be covered is the insulation, but that the insulation was done within that roof recently. So she wasn't sure how much more we could actually put in there and how much benefit there would actually be.
Right.
Because the air handler and the type of air handler that it is didn't qualify as energy efficient, which wouldn't qualify for the grant, I feel like.
That I don't recall.
Okay.
And I don't have a note for it either. I think I was just trying to absorb everything she was saying.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know what? We have recording, right? So we record all these, so I could watch it back and listen for what she talked to us about, right? In the absence of just emailing her and asking her, to opine on that again. About
When would be the next meeting?
so probably, well, again, so if that grant application is due on April 9th, we're clearly not going to have the solar stuff. So then we would need to be able to work over the next couple of weeks trying to figure out what we wanted to put into this grant cycle, or at least request for the grant cycle, which mainly is the rooftop unit and any costs that we could defray from that, as well as the LED project, so that maybe they could do it over the summer. And we could probably, I'm assuming, while we haven't done a ton of research on it, we could throw in there the charging station, to say, we want to get funding for a potential electric vehicle charging station in town. Those are the three things that I'm remembering off top of mind that we were looking for, or potentially have been asked, right? So do we want to attempt to get all three of those things? And if we do, then we need to do a little bit of research, make sure that we have it right, and probably have some type of cost estimates for it. I'm assuming that the grant is going to require us to put in projected costs. So whether or not we could actually get projected costs on that stuff that quickly, within a 3-week time frame.
That's where Joe Bliss will come in. I can certainly ask the question tomorrow.
Okay.
But I don't know how quickly they could turn that around.
Okay. And that's what BTQ would be able to do. Like, they are people that we work with that can provide kind of the guidance and the estimates for what any of these projects might actually cost us, so that we can put it in to the grant.
And the school has done their own work with Guardian as far as estimates on their end, I guess, but I just don't have a whole lot of details.
Do we need to meet to go over RFIs from the contractors? Questions?
The quotes?
Yeah,
Yes.
because we have that set for the 1st of April, that all questions are due back by then. Do we need to meet as a committee to address those questions?
Yeah, I could certainly, the committee could designate Jason or Steve or any one of you as the point person to address questions. The one thing is that, you know, while it's not required to make sure that all of the prospective vendors quoting on the project get answers, you know, get consistent answers, I think we'd probably want to just disseminate the answers, you know, amongst all the contractors. So if
Yep.
you
Right.
wanted to designate one of you as a point person to address those, they can come to me and then I can send them out to you. I don't think it would require a meeting. You'll definitely want to meet the week after quotes are submitted.
After this.
So who's it gonna be? Jason or Steve?
Doesn't matter to
Um,
me.
Yeah, me neither. I could do either. Steve, got a point?
Yeah, no, if you want, it's like, I can be the point person for that.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll make sure that we, you know, obviously, you know, any questions that come in that I don't have answers to, I'll have to reach out to the committee.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, you know, between Margaret and Eloise, we've got 2 people that should have the answers for us.
I can deal with the RFQ, like specifically RFQ questions. I'll handle those. Those are fine.
Yeah.
I did talk with
probably
Dave.
don't have the answer, but I probably know who does have the answer.
Right.
There you
As
go. We
long as
know
we
where to-
can
we
get
know
ourselves
where to-
pointed in the right direction, that's all that matters.
Right.
Yep.
I did talk with Dave Smith this morning, and you see on the request for quotes that anybody who wants a site visit can call him ahead of time,
yeah.
and he'll be there for them.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I still have the drawings. I gotta bring those back just in case whoever wants to see them wants to see the drawings.
Is that the town highway, Maren?
Yes.
I call Dave, but ask him, I might have a digital copy, in which case I can post it under my town government.
Okay.
I will let you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But either way, I want to get the roll of drawings out of my spare room.
Point made.
Yeah. Before Dom or I get to him.
Yeah. Well, no, they're up in a relatively safe place.
Oh, that's good.
There's a lot of Legos around them right now, but you know, for the most part,
Because they're like these big, huge, oversized like coloring sheets, Dad.
yeah.
Yep.
No, they're rolled up nicely. They're tucked off to the side.
Nice.
I needed a space to like look through them, so I ended up just clearing the floor and just putting them on the floor and going through them.
That's great. Okay, so I think we got some items to think about. I guess the one thing that we probably should do is make a, you know, do we want to make a decision tonight? Do we think it's wise to make a decision tonight on yay or nay on April or October? Because I think that we probably need to make a decision on that tonight, right? Because if we're going to hit April, there's a fair amount of work for us to be able to get there to do that, right? And I'd like to say we could research, and Steve and I could try to gain an appreciation for how difficult it is to put through that grant application before we made a vote on that. But I think that's going to eat up at least a week of our time, right? Because we have to review the information, then we have to have a meeting out there where we can get back and then make some type of vote on whether or not we go forward with April or October. which then is only going to leave us about 2 weeks. And I just think from a capacity standpoint, getting something in that fast is going to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah. For any part of, like, even the little ones, I think would be difficult to get in.
Yeah. So I'm inclined to, just put to the group a roll call vote on whether or not we think April is the one that we want to go for, or is it October? I would say I feel a little bit better about October, knowing that we also have the ability to get other funds, that rural community development fund for the solar. Like, we might be able to start that project sooner. I would prefer, like Steve, like you said, let's see what else is out there and the other wants, maybe not necessarily the needs that we could do. And I think that if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. And we need to have enough time to do a thorough job, which is by default going to put us in October. And then, I think part of that is a factor of Steve and I trying to get up to speed and get used to this whole process, and how we can kind of integrate the needs and the responsibilities into our day-to-day. So as much as I would have loved to have hit it and got there quickly, I just think it's been a learning experience, and it will continue to be one for us. But I think we're still doing the right thing. I feel like we would be doing more justice for the town and for the residents of the town if we're being a little bit more thorough in our review and putting forth a competitive kind of grant cycle application in October that is full of maybe we have 4 or 5 things in there. So with that, let me put it to a roll call vote. Should we move forward with? I'll ask for a vote of either April or October from each of the members. So Steve,
October.
Eloise,
Abstain.
okay, and Jason, I'm going to say October as well.
I will let Kelly and Joe know that tomorrow, and there'll be a little breathing room.
Yeah.
As far as, but I'll also ask, and I'll pass along to Steve at the school too, that we're not going to, that it wouldn't be submitted until the October grant round. The EV charging station, I just looked at the DEP's electric vehicle incentive program. Of course, the grant application deadline is March 19th. Go figure. But when we do the parking lot, hopefully we get bids coming in. We'll be doing the bid opening this Friday. When we do the parking lot, my understanding is that they're going to lay conduit under the new pavement so that we can be ready to run lines for electric vehicle charging stations. So I think that's, and I think the highway department was going to try to do a lot of that work running the conduit itself.
Okay.
So there'll be that opportunity at the building at 23.
At the building.
Mhm.
So I guess I have one question. So the information that I sent out a little while ago about the potential for assistance for the charging station, the way that I read and understood it was that it couldn't just be solely for town vehicle use. It had to be public use
Yes.
as well. Which, I mean, I don't know how complicated that is if the town is going to use it at the same time as, as the public potentially. It's like, I don't know how central that location really is for people to stop in, charge their cars.
Mhm.
Steve, when we discussed it a year or 2 ago, the bigger problem we ran into is, okay, the town will pay for their electric usage, but how would you have a private party pay? Or do you expect
Right.
the town to absorb the whole cost? We never really got an answer to that.
Right. And I don't think it's fair to ask the town to absorb that cost because, you know how people are. It's like someone might go and charge their car every single night and
Mm.
Next thing you know,
Mhm.
they're not having to pay and they've got fuel for an electric vehicle for free.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's definitely, as I see it, that's definitely one of the challenges. It's like, my view would be something, not that the public doesn't deserve something like this, but it's something that's dedicated solely to town vehicles, and it's the town resource.
Yeah, I think the only other option with that, right, Steve, is I know you mentioned last time a lot of these stations, like the Tesla stations, or what, so you have a subscription, right, and you have a card, like a gas card, and
Yep.
that's what you use to pay for it. So the alternative, if we were trying to get the entire thing paid for, right, because I think it was, you could be up to 100% funded if it was for everybody, and then it was 75% funded if it was just for one party, and then it was 50% funded if it was for like only the town or something like that. But if we were trying to get the entire thing covered, if we went with a pay by card piece, then, you know, like a gas card, electrical gas card, then the chief would have his own card and that card would get charged back as an expense to the town, right? So, and then everybody else would have to be able to get a subscription to said piece, so
Right.
it would end up being their consumption, right? As
Right,
opposed
but
to,
we have the challenge of, I mean, you think of them as like a gas station, right? You know, you got to bring someone in willing to put a gas station in that part of town.
yeah,
You know, so would like Charge America or some of these other ones be willing to have one of their, you know, one of their stops be, you know, in the center of Berlin?
mhm.
So I don't know. I mean, it's lots of questions.
Yeah.
You know, lots of unknowns.
Yeah, I think it's something that we vet a little bit further. We understand the options that we have for installation and come down the right path, right? Um, and at the same time making sure that, again, like we, you know, our whole goal is, you know, we're the voice for the rest of the residents of the town, and I don't say just the residents, but it's the residents and the services that the town provide, right? We have to try to make sure that we can make the most efficient use of town funds, and or save town funds wherever possible.
Mhm.
So if, you know, if it's, part of me says, if, you know, the cost of the electrical charging station is cheaper than gas, and we're going to have vehicles that allow us to do that instead, you know, if a grant is going to pay for the entire thing, if we open it up to the public, whether it's convenient or not, you know, if we're still saving the town money over the long term, that's still saving the residents money because the tax bill doesn't have to be quite as high. I think conveniences could potentially be less of a factor in our voting on whether or not we do it versus, you know, is it overall just going to save the town money long term? And that's that cost benefit analysis that we would have to be able to do to understand that.
I was just on the frequently asked questions for Mass EVIP. Can a participant charge a fee to use the EV charging stations? Yes. So again, well, I'm sorry, I'm not answering the question. It's just, it
Yeah.
clarifies that
Yeah.
we can charge once, get it.
Okay. Okay. So that's good. I know we're coming up on an hour here. We've, for a quickly pulled together meeting, we've covered quite a bit.
You sure have.
So to make up for some, we had to make up for some lost time. The good news here, just from a repeat of what we've been through, we've got the RFQ ready. That will go out ASAP. They'll have until April 1st to get questions to us, of which time we're not making a commitment to them. When we'll get the answers to those questions back, but the likelihood is that we'll probably get them back to them within 48 hours, or at least give them 48 to 72 hours before the deadline of the RFQ to be posted, so that they can appropriately evaluate the answers to those questions and put them into their response. The competitive grant cycle, we will move towards, we are moving towards the October competitive grant cycle for the Green Communities grants. We will then work with Steve Pusateri on the LED lighting piece. We will not be able to, and they're going to be replacing the rooftop unit here within probably the next 6 months, right? I'm assuming they're doing that prior to the summer months coming in.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of out of luck with that. I will double check with Kelly or watch the old meeting back just to get her thought process again on how much we're overlooking by not doing that. I am a little curious just so that we know and we can, understand what our decision has cost us from that perspective. And then we'll also continue to evaluate the electric charging station, as well as, I do, and I would like for us to somehow over the next probably 6 months, get some way, shape, or form that we can kind of survey the community on other ideas that might be out there, that we might be able to put into the Green Communities grant, knowing what we need to be able to do to drive and remain a green community so that we can be funded appropriately. And
could I
that
interrupt
is-
quickly?
Sure. Yep.
When were you thinking of getting this survey from the town?
Not sure. Just something I know that we've talked about before as a potential.
Well, I'm trying to think of, like, are we talking before October, or if not,
Yes.
when I do a census, I can easily send out a questionnaire?
Yeah, I would say we're probably going to want to try to do it prior to October. I would say we would probably want to do something like this by what, June, Steve? June or July?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Is that
and
something
again,
you can do on SurveyMonkey?
yeah, there's a couple different formats that we could use to be able to do that. And we know that there's a few different ways for us. Obviously, we'd have to post it on the town site, but some of those Facebook communities that are out there as well, we could leverage those and put a post to that out there. And again, it's not saying that we're necessarily going to take any of those suggestions and run with them. It's more to kind of solicit the community and let them know that we want to be able to listen and solicit ideas from them as well. It's also probably a good way for us to potentially find out other people that might be interested in joining the committee, because we can base it on if people put through a real thorough response and they clearly understand and have a passion for it, then it's probably a good fit for the committee.
So tomorrow in my conversation with Kelly and Joe, I will ask if there are any other incentive programs or rebate programs for the RTU and the roof installation, because maybe we could at least avail ourselves of something there.
Mm-hmm.
And Margaret, are you good for the stabilization funding article? That will go on the warrant?
Yeah, I think we're good for that. So the Energy Committee, the article would actually include the FY20 amounts collected, 10,407.02, and ask town meeting to approve automatic funding of the stabilization fund from FY21 and beyond.
Okay, and then did you say you were going to go to capital funding, or we can go to capital funding to talk about the roof, where it was approved or the 50,000 was approved in 93? If we need to go back and do something?
Well, all I'm going to do is plug in the 1993 date in the capital article.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent.
Do we still need to decide on our next meeting? We started talking about.
Yes, we should, Steve. So we should probably meet if the RFQs are going to be due on the 9th. Then that gives us, we're probably going to want to give ourselves some time to be able to review those before we meet as a committee. So and today's the 16th, maybe Thursday, maybe the 15th.
Tax day?
Oh yeah, that is tax day, isn't it?
Yes, please.
That would be a good way to end that day.
So
There's
that,
Thursday, the Thursday the 15th or Tuesday the 13th. 13th might be a quick turnaround depending on what those RFQs bring back, but at the same time, with those RFQs, Margaret, are we tied to whoever comes back with the RFQ as the low bidder is
Yes.
who's going to get it?
You are.
Yep.
Then I'd
That
say the
said, you'll be
13th.
able to look at all of them. I'll have the, we have to do a record of procurement, so I'll send it all to you when we get them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
So then we probably want to give you a couple days to do that before we meet. So I think Thursday the 15th is probably a better date than Tuesday the 13th.
Okay. Peg,
Steve,
I
what do
show
you think?
coffee talk on the 15th. Is that right? Or was it the following week?
Well, I think we were gonna have it on the 15th, Margaret, but that was on the assumption that the town meeting was on the 3rd. Now that
All
the
right.
town meeting is sliding, we can slide coffee talk out a couple weeks.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So the 15th?
Is there a Zoom available there, Margaret? Keep all
There
the Zooms?
is, yes. It
Okay.
would have there was only one taken that night for coffee talk, so we'll put you on another Zoom.
Okay.
What time?
7:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30 works better, doesn't it?
I like 7:30. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely works a little bit better. Too many
Yeah.
little people.
Yeah, I was able to get my little one down for bed too, so.
All right, April 15th, 7:30 PM. I'll book the Zoom right after this meeting tonight and get it out to you guys.
Thank you.
Just a quick question here. We don't have to go into this like into any detail, but what's the likelihood that 4 contractors will come back and through like assumptions and exclusions, they're all a little different?
That's where we come in with this. So hopefully the scope of work that we've provided and the documents are going to be clear enough so that they understand, and then they can come back with questions. So the hope here is that they come back with consistent quotes,
Okay.
with the consistent scope work.
Okay.
But that's a really good question because, what was I just thinking?
Did
Oh,
you
never mind. Couldn't have been that.
warranty?
What is that?
Do you include a warranty for the product?
Well, this is a consulting job. They're going to have a threshold of $12,500. Anybody that comes in over that, we don't have an appropriation for. So shrewd vendors on this list will understand that the town has received we say we've received a meta grant, and they know what that limit is. So
Oh, yeah.
they better come in at 12,500 or less.
It will be 12,500 exactly.
It will.
That's the downside of dealing with the public. They know how much
But then we get the choice then, right?
That's yeah.
based on what they write. Yes.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Yep, me too.
It'll
Okay.
be
Hey.
interesting.
So with that, I'm gonna call for a close of the meeting.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Seconded.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for your
No,
time.
no,
especially-
you got to do a roll
Oh.
call vote.
Oh, sorry. I'll get used to it eventually.
Well,
So
that's the problem with Zoom.
yeah,
know.
roll call
One of
vote
them.
to adjourn the meeting. Steve,
Eloise, yes.
Steve, yes.
Jason, yes.